Hello and welcome back to the Kendal Mountain YouTube channel. This month we're going to be focusing on the subject of swimming, and we wanted to kick it off with the amazing athlete Sophie Etheridge. So recently, on the 22nd of August this year, Sophie recently completed her cross-channel swim in what is pipped to be the longest duration ever of 29 hours. So not only is that impressive, but she also completed the feat using only her arms, which is really, truly outstanding. In this week's Throwback Thursday, she's going to be telling us about how she managed to complete not only the length of Windermere once, but twice. We hope you enjoy.
Anyway, let's move on. I'd like to welcome Sophie Etheridge onto the stage. Everybody. You good? You comfy?
I'm good.
Hi, Sophie. So, just a quick intro. 10 years ago, Sophie had a life-changing bike accident. And then 5 years later, she could barely dangle her feet or legs in water without severe pain. This year, she swam two-way Windermere in September.
Thank you.
Incredible. So, for those who don't know your story, I thought perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about your swim history, because as a child, you grew up by the coast, didn't you?
Yes, so I grew up in Hastings on the south coast and did a lot of sea swimming. I joined the local voluntary lifeguard club, and we did all the safety cover for rowing regattas and that sort of thing. At about age 14, 15, they decided to fundraise for the charity and did a cross-channel relay swim. They started with I think there were about 20 swimmers, and gradually as winter sort of went on, people slowly dropped out and got fewer and fewer and fewer, and there ended up being the 6 of us. Got on the boat and had practiced not being seasick, as odd as that sounds, and had never been seasick before in my life, and actually on the day was seasick for 14 and a half hours straight. So ended up not being able to swim. So I'd done all of the training, and at age sort of 14, 15, had to make that decision at about 3 o'clock in the morning that I wasn't going to swim, because if I swam and then got out and was sick again and couldn't get back in, then the whole team would fail. So once I'd sort of recovered from that mentally and physically, I said, well, if I can't go on the boat, I'll just have to do it solo. And haven't quite got there yet, but I'm still working on it.
Well, that was still quite an incredible thing to train for a channel relay at 14. So let's just fast forward then. So talk to us about this bike accident and, you know, what, as a result, you got complex regional pain syndrome and what that is for us.
So I went to university at Anglia Ruskin in Cambridge and studied music, because I've always been a musician alongside my swimming, and was on my way to a triathlon training session. It was a circuit session type thing, strength and conditioning. Got halfway and was cycling there because I've never been able to drive, and a car didn't indicate and turned and cut me off basically and swiped my front wheel out. I was attached to the bike, and it meant that the bike went one way and I went the other way. I was very lucky in some respects, in that I had no broken bones, nothing like that, just had scratches and bruises and a sprained left ankle where it had been yanked away from the bike. Everyone assumed I'd be sort of recovered in a few weeks after a sprained ankle like you are, but instead of recovering, actually my pain got worse and worse. There was no reason for my pain to get worse and worse, and no one could work out why it was getting worse and worse. But from then on, I walked with a minimum of 2 crutches, or had to use a wheelchair, where I was pushed around. Obviously, I was away from home at this time, so it was quite difficult family-wise, and there was a lack of support of knowing what was going on. It took about 2.5 years, and I was eventually seen by a specialist and told that I had complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS. So CRPS is a chronic pain condition. It's rated as one of the most painful conditions in the world, and it affects me from sort of mid-thigh downwards, but is worse in my left foot where I had the initial injury. And it's triggered by when you have an accident and you get pain signals sent, and as you heal, they get less. With complex cerebral pain syndrome, they just intensify. So they gradually get worse and worse. So years and years after the injury, you can experience more pain than you got when you had the injury, if that sort of makes sense. So there's no cure for it, just physiotherapy, hydrotherapy, medication, basically. I was put on a pain management program at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. I was quite lucky to get a place. And at the beginning of it, we all had to set goals. And my goal, and there was also one other lady's goal, was to start swimming again. We both used to swim, and due to our conditions, had both stopped swimming. For me, my issue was hypersensitivity. For hers, it was just general strength. And from then, never really looked back. But had to start from scratch because I couldn't actually get into a swimming pool because it was too painful on my legs.
Yeah, so you described to me that putting your feet and legs into just a warm swimming pool was excruciating pain. So you set your sights on the Great East Swim, which was a mile, as you do when just water on your legs really hurts. And so when did you do the Great East?
So I think it was 2016 I did the Great East Swim. So that was my first swim back, and once I did that, I sort of haven't stopped.
Look back. Yeah,
basically.
It's
just got bigger and bigger and bigger and further swims, really.
Yeah. So you did like a 3K, a 5K,
a 10K,
you know, we all know the drill, don't we?
Yeah.
So how did we get to Windermere and, not just swimming a length of it, because, that's just a breeze, isn't it? We'll do it two ways.
So in 2019, I did the swim in Wales at Lake Tallinn, and it was supposed to be a 10-mile swim, but we got there, and on the day, the temperature was 13, and the coldest I'd swum in was about 18. So I was terrified, didn't know how my body was going to deal with the cold, and it was very, very painful, and in the end, I decided to get out after 10K. But then I sort of decided and had a think about what I want. I've always wanted to do Lake Windermere, but had always set my sight on one way. But I figured that I'd done 10K, so doing the sort of 10 miles wasn't that much further. So I might as well kind of
we could all do
double.
That, couldn't we?
So decided to do double.
I mean, 10K, you're the Welsh swim, 10K in 13, 12 degree water. That's cold for that distance.
Yeah, it was cold.
That's
very cold.
And so, obviously planning, training for a Windermere swim, whether it is one way or two way, that's already quite a task.
Yeah.
What kind of adaptations did you have to do? What kind of planning had to go into to keep you safe?
So the first thing was I had to learn to wear a wetsuit for a long period of time. So for about 6 months, I think it took in the end, I would literally sit half in my wetsuit, watching the TV, eating my dinner. Looked a bit odd, but it made me be able to adjust and get used to the pain on my legs so that then it wouldn't be such a big issue when I was actually swimming. So it's kind of, in a way, like becoming acclimatised to water. It's becoming acclimatised to having something on your legs. And from there, it was sort of building up the swimming. And I contacted Swim Your Swim, who were the pilots for me for my Windermere swim, had quite a long chat with Leon from there and said, look, this is a bonkers idea. I didn't really think I was going to do it, but I'd quite like to do it. Can I do it? And he basically turned around and went, yeah, why not?
That's what we need, don't we, in life when someone says that.
What can we do? So in the end, I had my sister who's here on the boat with me. So she was my sort of food feeder and everything. Leon and I had a chat before about all of my medication and everything that I had to take, because I had to take medication whilst I was actually swimming. So we'd set a plan for that. We'd also changed the way that if a swimmer needed to get out of the water in the middle of a swim, normally they'd climb onto the boat. I couldn't do that, so they towed a rib boat around so that I would be able to get into that. Then they could get me to the side, and then I could get into the boat. So they kind of thought of everything, really. And it was really, really nice to just turn up and then go, yeah, we've done this, it'll be fine, off we go. And that was sort of it. And they were great all the way through. say anything bad about them, really can't.
And how long did it take?
It took 16 hours and 41 minutes.
Incredible, well done. Yeah, round of applause for that. And so you're kind of leading the way here for swimmers everywhere, and you're doing a lot of work around accessibility and welcoming disabled swimmers like yourself. So you set up a Facebook group, am I right? Yeah. And that's become quite something, hasn't it?
Yeah, so basically through lockdown I continued swimming with my regular swimming buddy and did a lot of strength and conditioning. It was when I was training for Windermere, and originally my Windermere swim was supposed to be in 2020, but due to COVID, I decided to leave it a year so that I'd be able to train more. And throughout that year, when I'd done a few events and things, I'd always turned up to events and I'd never ever seen another disabled swimmer. And I decided, just out of the blue in January, I was like, why not set up a group and see if anyone actually joins? So I set up a Facebook group with a few of my friends. I think there were about 20 of us in January this year. So it's not actually that old. It's quite new. Simply to see if I could sort of tempt any other disabled swimmers to come and join me, because at the time I was only ever swimming against able-bodied athletes and I'm not able to keep my legs, so I'm at a big disadvantage in every event that I do. And overnight, all of a sudden, we had 150 members. So I turned my phone off because I was getting so many notifications. And it's grown from there. And I'm really proud of the work that all of us in the group has done. We've made a lovely little community that's quite tight and really welcoming and friendly to everybody. The groups for not just the swimmers, but also for carers, assistants, swim buddies, coaches, event organisers, anyone that is interested in making their events or swim more inclusive and accessible to everybody. There's been some pretty incredible stories we've had. I'll never forget the one that sort of made me stop and go, what? Which was a totally blind man, absolutely lovely, who swims daily in the river on his own.
Yeah, you told me that. I think that's incredible.
And so my response was, how? And he went, I just sort of know. I can just feel it from one side of the river to the other, and I just do the swim, put my stuff in my toe float, and swim from one side to the other, get out, and then go home. And I was like, okay.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Sophie. If you'd like to check out the full interview, you can check it out over on the KENDAL Mountain Player, where we have over 400 different films and collections to choose from, with brand new content joining every single week. Additionally, the outdoor swim session tickets are now on sale for the 2023 festival, so make sure to check all those links out in the link in the description below.